we all agree that that's just like unbecoming? And who at the White House thought it was a good idea to invite somebody like that? I'm not trying to be nasty or derogatory. I've never even met this girl, but I just find it to be very cheap, right? And you're also not supposed to be wearing MAGA hats in the White House. Like, not to be a stickler for the rules, but we would be going crazy if, Joe Biden was wearing Democrat gear in the White House. You're not supposed to be having campaign gear inside the White House. And so it's like, is this a serious release of the Epstein files, or is this like a propaganda campaign for the Trump administration? And I'm a serious journalist and I'm a Trump supporter, but I can also, call it out. Like, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to be like giving out campaign materials inside the White House. So I think that a lot of these influencers too, like they put President Trump in jeopardy when they're like taking photos of themselves in their MAGA hats at the White House with these binders. Like, what kind of journalist are you if you're posting these binders and you're not even looking inside of them to see what's inside? There were no files inside. They all just made fools of themselves. So
conservative journalism, I think they found out how to get young male votes, and it might be working. Have you noticed that all the young female conservative journalists are hot and showing cleavage? It's a new thing. I think it used to be like
I'm not showing cleavage. Maybe I don't really care. Like, there's people out there who think I'm attractive, and there's people who don't think I'm attractive. I don't really care, because at the end of the day, like, I think you sell yourself short when you build your entire career off of what you look like. Because I'm 31 years old, and in a few more years, I'll probably start to get wrinkles. Maybe I'll have a kid. Maybe I'll get married. Might get a few stretch marks. Might gain a few pounds. I don't know. Maybe I'll get cancer. I'll lose my hair. Like maybe I'll get in a car accident and get paralyzed. So am I just gonna am I not gonna have a following because I created a whole following based off a bunch of young male simps who want to orbit around me and just tell me like how hot they think I am? Or do I want to be like, totally zipped up, covered, and with the exception of not wearing a burqa, and have people actually like me and follow me because, well, they respect my intellect and they respect my reports. And again, I'm not a feminist, but I just think that, like, you have to decide what your own expiration date is going to be. And if you as a woman decide to put your looks and your appearance at the forefront of your reporting, your journalism, whatever you want to call it, your content, you're going to have an earlier expiration date compared to a woman like me who is completely non-sexualized and is doing work that actually like garners merit and garners attention because it actually is interesting and it's newsworthy. And I'm not trying to say I'm better than everybody else, but it's just this kind of unfortunate situation that you see has been created on the right, especially with women. And there's left wingers who do this too, but it just seems like the quickest way to gain prominence on the right is like, oh, let me just like show my tits and let me just like, show how hot I am and let me just like flaunt my looks. Maybe that's what Pam Blondie's trying to do. She's like 60 years old, but she looks like she's 40 to her own credit. And she just seems to be auditioning for a full-time slot on Fox News so that she can join the slate of other blonde bombshells on Rupert Murdoch's network. I don't know. Maybe that's what she wants.
Now, speaking of behavior of other women in the movement, Laura, Candace Owens recently tried to pretend that she had a different position from you on the overthrow of Assad in Syria. Now, what would you like to say to Candace Owens pretending that she was against the overthrow and you weren't?
Well, Candace Owens seems to think that it's like a Zionist conspiracy theory. And it's a real shame. I want to say, look, I've gotten along with Candace in the past and we were friends and, we used to hang out. And so she's entitled to her own opinions. I'm not saying she should be banned. But it is kind of interesting how she tried to make it seem like it was some Zionist plot and that, every single person who identifies as a Zionist was in favor of Assad being overthrown, when I very clearly stated that it was a disaster when Assad was being toppled and that this new Islamic terrorist who was taking his place was going to be even more barbaric and was going to be even more problematic because at least Assad protected Christians, Alawites, and other religious minorities. Despite how people thought he was, somehow brutal. And, the brutality that people accuse Assad of carrying out was so-called brutality, and I say that in quotation marks, against Islamic terrorists. So is it really a form of brutality to go after Islamic terrorists, or is it just counterterrorism to prevent an insurgency of radical Muslims taking over your country? So I always said this, and I've been saying it for years as somebody who speaks out against Islamic terrorism, as somebody who's very involved in the counter-jihad movement. But, like everything has to be a Zionist conspiracy theory to Candace Owens, it seems like. So she didn't even want to acknowledge the fact that my view was the same as her view. And then she accused me of saying that she's funded by Qatar, even though she can't produce any single statement of me ever saying that she was funded by Qatar.
I think some of that might have been a little bit also directed, the idea that Tucker might have been funded by Qatar. That interview was, in my estimation, a little bit fishy. We haven't seen Qatar come out and do interviews like that before. So, I like Tucker well enough, but him sitting down with the honcho from Qatar all of a sudden, that was a little odd to me. I just hadn't seen that before. And as you know, John Dutoit and Scooter Downey, they did a documentary for Mike Cernovich a couple years ago called Blood Money, where they laid out all the money Qatar was putting into the left and on the right, in DC, in the media. So that interview was a little strange to me. But speaking of the the Islamist movement, Trump's property in New York City just a couple of days ago was flooded with Islamists and some left-wing radical Jews. The Jewish Voices for Peace, they were flooding Trump Tower. They were demanding the freedom of apparently a British agent of some kind that's a Islamist that's being deported. And
Mahmoud Khalil. I mean, they all don't. Isn't it funny? They all have the same name. It's like Mahmoud, Abdul, or Muhammad. It's like it's like you roll a dice and there's like a 90% chance you're going to get a name of
like
Muhammad,
Christopher,
Mahmoud, or
Michael here. Yeah,
or John.
It's a very common
but it's crazy.
Name, yeah.
And it's so funny that, they said that he had a UK security clearance because you know what the number one name in the UK is, right?
Muhammad.
Baby name?
Muhammad?
Yeah.
Makes sense. They've had a complete what is it called? Population shift, so to speak.
It's terrible.
That's the thing that gets me about all the people talking about, we're deporting this guy. Like, why would you care under what pretense we deport Mahmoud, whether it's protesting against Israel or whatever it is? Basically, anybody that got here in the last 10 years that doesn't belong here, I don't care if it's for, they were protesting against Israel or they got a speeding ticket. I want these people deported. They should be thanking the Jews for the pretense we're giving the Trump administration to deport these people. I want them out. I don't want to be like Londonistan. I want them out.
Well, I'm not just talking about Istans. I'm talking about every nationality that should not be here. We need to deport them. Period. This is not, look, man, if a Jewish guy went out and did something anti-American, broke the law, and he was, not a citizen, deport him.
Yep.
I'm very consistent on that.
Yep.
I'm very consistent. Doesn't matter who you are. You can be Polish, Jewish, German, don't care. Get out of here. I don't care. This guy just happens to be, from that side of the world. And if he doesn't like America, go back to that side of the world. Whatever side of the world we're talking. For this guy, go to the Middle East. Go. Get out of here.
Well, it's just so funny how they say like death to America, death to Israel, and they criticize the United States government for supporting what they call genocide in Gaza, but then they want to stay here. So if you think that we're supporting genocide and you think that Trump and Biden are so bad, then why are you even in our country? Like, just go back to where you came from. And what's crazy too is, Mahmoud Khalil was born in a Syrian refugee camp. He's Palestinian, but he was born in Syria. And his wife released a statement, and I showed this on my show the other night. She was like, oh, my family came from Syria and we felt safer in Syria than we do here. How insulting to the American people to say that Syria is safer when we know that Syria is currently being controlled right now by an offshoot of ISIS that is going around and crucifying Christians on video. And they are literally on video blowing Christians' brains out.